Hello there. Welcome everyone to the Fish of Time show. This is show number 2, Creationism. We have everyone here except for Thunderbolt, who can't make it today because he is out of town. Michael, aka Rational Roundtable, who is yet to show up, but probably will about halfway through the show, just like last time.
Just mute yourself. Okay.
So we were going to start by each of us, particularly me, Aaron K. and Chihuahua, recounting our past interactions with young Earth creationism and creationism in general.
Yeah, let's start.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we'll start off with Aaron K, if that's okay, as he's the first on my Skype list.
Yeah, that's completely fine. Okay. So you want me to just start from the beginning and?
Start with how you became a creationist and how you stopped being one ultimately.
Yeah. Okay. Basically, 2007 or around early 2008, I started watching Kent Hovind seminars, and you guys know that those are full of absolute truth and all that. So, I was basically indoctrinated. I don't really like to use that word, but I believe it's really applicable here, into, believing that the Earth 6,000 years old, evolution's wrong, the typical trends. And basically, I had a really firm conviction after watching a few minutes of Kent Hovind. So I went on YouTube. I had made my account in late 2007, so it was sometime after that. So I started going on YouTube and making some of the worst videos ever made, basically parroting Kent Hovind, not only word for word, but for inflection, because I thought, the internet's a pretty big place. I mean, probably no one will pick up that I'm copying Kent Hovind, well, like everyone did. So I was like, man, but I kept doing it, and then pretty much spewed out, stupidity after stupidity. Wait, stupidity is not a noun, whatever. Pretty much just making stupid video after stupid video. And then Cobain 52, who's now known as Cobain the Christian, challenged me to a debate on the issue of evolution, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I think I can beat this guy, and then I got absolutely stomped into the ground. It was then that I didn't deny creationism but it really started to make me think. And then I sort of went on, sort of making the same kind of videos, but I just approached it, a different mindset because of my experience with Cobain. And just gradually over time, I slowly moved away from Kent Hovind and, all the other creationist nonsense. And then around mid-2009, I believe, is when I completely renounced young Earth creationism. And it wasn't until about the end of that year that I not only denounced the young Earth creationism, but creationism in general, and accepted evolution. So it was a pretty long journey and a pretty embarrassing one at that. So yeah, that's my of creationism.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Next one. Ethan, do you want to add anything to that? Anybody?
I would like to add something, if I may.
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah.
Do you think there was? You said you changed from being a young Earth creationist to a theistic evolutionist through 2 years of slowly thinking about it. But was there any moment that you went from Kent Hovind to that other creationist source, and then you examine whether this source was true or not, and then you repeated that process to basically every creationist until you came up with a conclusion that basically they were all wrong, or was it something else?
More or less.
Okay.
Like, I realized Kent Hovind was completely wrong before I really renounced creationism, but I mean, I was still into things like Answers in Genesis and, like, you know, sort of the lesser extreme of the creationists, but eventually I realized that they were all wrong, like, completely wrong. So.
But, like, did you also go, like, from young Earth creationist to old Earth creationist to, like...
Yeah.
Okay.
I went from young Earth, and then around early to mid 2009, I renounced young Earth creationism, and then at the end of 2009, I renounced old Earth creationism. So it was a pretty gradualistic evolution.
Yeah, I'm exactly. And I'll think I tell mine now.
I mean, well, do you want to go next, Potato?
Yes.
Okay, that's no problem. You go ahead.
I mean, for me, it was, I think the exact opposite. It really hit me extremely quickly. What happened was, it started, you know, I was a fervent young Earth creationist. I actually began my life as a theistic evolutionist. I loved science a lot. And then my mom brought home this book called, The Truth, called Dinosaurs Unleashed, subtitle involving the word truth, which is always a bad sign. And from that point, I read it, and because I had been convinced by a documentary on the History Channel that dragons had a historical basis, I got into the dinosaur stuff about dinosaurs, and I kind of became curious. Then I did something I don't think I would ever normally do, and that is I watched a Kent Hovind seminar. And I just randomly recorded a video that I was positive would be a fat, boring guy, preaching to me. I did not expect Kent Hovind when I recorded something with my DVR, but I got him, and he ultimately got me in. I went on to essentially be a Venom Thing X fanboy on YouTube for a couple of years. Then, I got the idea of actually going on and promoting creationism myself. That's what I created my Pup Eternal account for. And from there, I got to the point where I started having a couple of doubts. For one thing, I realized that the theological problem of death before sin is nothing. It's not at all valid. It's horrible argument. Ultimately then I got this strangest realization. I thought to myself, why is it, if there's so much evidence for a young Earth, why isn't the scientific community noticing this? And I thought to myself, I gave myself the typical apologetic in response to that, which is that there's a conspiracy. And then I just had this moment during which I can only describe the feeling as, holy crap, I actually believe that. Immediately I dismissed young Earth creationism. And from there I went to being an intelligent design creationist, something, I'd say even slightly less of a creationist than that. I went into the concept of how you could demonstrate evolution to have been guided, and I made my priority shift series, largely actually as a result of this. It documents this change from design. So from there, I went on and I had some chats. I had planned to read two textbooks, a normal textbook and a creationist textbook, and see which one could convince me, that they had the truth. And I didn't actually manage to do that. You know, I planned to stay offline to make pro-Christian philosophy videos for a year, and then come back with whatever position I ended up with, which I suspected would be something like intelligent design. But I happened to have like just a little thing. I was in Point Mancero's chat room one day, and this is when I actually accepted evolution. I was in his chat room, and I was firing off the last of the arguments for intelligent design, all of the traditional ones. The bacterial flagellum, I knew it was bunk, but I still thought it looked enough like a motor to be evidence of intelligent design. And I just went through all of these, and McMackey stopped me and said to me something I'm really thankful he said this to me. Said, the problem with that is, you're ultimately arguing from ignorance. You're saying that because you don't know how else that could occur, it must have been God, and it doesn't work that way. And as soon as he said that, I thought for a response. No, it was Vic Mackey, Skeptic TV. I thought for a response. After not coming up with one, I left the chat room, and at that point, I could no longer accept any kind of creationism, because I knew that any argument for creationism was ultimately a golden hammer fallacy or an argument from incredulity. And so it got me, and that's ultimately the things that got me are, I'd say, those three realizations. A conspiracy is just impossible for me to accept among all scientists. Any argument for creationism, for intelligent design, is our argument from incredulity. Jumping from intelligent design to a young Earth is a proving too much fallacy. And the problem of death before sin simply does not exist in reality. Even though the solution I came up with then, which was that pain somehow gained its badness after the fall, after the first person sinned, I actually no longer accept that, simply because there's really not evidence for it. But that was one of the realizations that could be the case that got me out of young Earth creationism. And I've of course not mentioned how I got really buddy close to Shock and Neff, and how another thing is, as you said, asking to Aaron K last time, I did slowly start losing faith in creationists over time. I lost my faith completely in Kent Hovind after seeing Thunderfoot's Why Do People Laugh at Creationists Part 12. Thunderfoot had no reason to lie about this, because none of the things Hovind was saying was actually proof of creation or an argument against evolution. So at that point I thought Kent Hovind to be an idiot. I lost my faith in Venom once I realized how stupid he was. I ultimately lost my faith in all of them, in Nephilim Free. I really knew Nephilim Free was an idiot even when I was his follower. I just thought he was right by coincidence. And I'm rambling, so I'm going to cut myself off.
No, continue. That's awesome. Sorry, boss.
Can I ask you a question?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, to the problem of death before the fall. I don't accept it as a problem, but I'm interested to hear what your response would be.
The response I had that got me out of creationism was that before the fall, death existed. Because I was an annihilationist, I was a Nephilim Free, therefore I was both a modalist and an annihilationist. What that ultimately meant. What that ultimately meant for me was that death was really, and because Nephilim Free also believes in soul sleeping, I didn't see death as that big of a deal. The animal dies and its soul goes into storage. But what about pain? I thought of the idea that perhaps pain, suffering, they didn't feel it. It wasn't bad to them in the feeling they got that alerted them to an injury, and caused them to not do it anymore, but it wasn't negative to them. It didn't hurt in the same way it does now. And no, Dutch Liam, you're talking to Warrior Christian.
Right, I think Chihuahua wants to go next. Is that correct? If you were finished, probably tell, sorry. Were you finished?
Yes.
Okay, Chihuahua, you wanted to go next, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll let you go then. Okay, and then Lucky's next after that. I'll say you're next after Chihuahua's finished.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I was raised a creationist. So whenever the people that spoke before me, like, were introduced to creationism by Kent Hovind, my experience was quite different. I mean, everything I knew from the very beginning was such that creationism is true, and I didn't know anything about scientists. I knew that there were other scientists, but I thought that all the other scientists were just like, even on the playing field. I didn't know that there was this huge peer review system and whatnot. But whenever I started, I went to creationist excavations where you dig up fossils, and I met Carl Ball, went to the Plexi tracks, did all kind of crazy stuff like that. And what really started to change my mind on it is I was actually in a game, and some guy, for some reason I told him about I said something like evolution is stupid or something like that, and then this guy told me, no, you're wrong, and he started showing me that the Earth is actually really a lot older than I thought it was, because I thought it was like 6,000 years old. And then I was just like, I was mad at him. I was like, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so I started this quest to disprove evolution, pretty much. So I started going on forums, and I started showing them all the sources I had, because I had all these creationist books that I've gotten from my parents and stuff. And what happened was one of my sources were wrong, and why it was wrong. And I was just like surprised, because I thought that evolution was obviously wrong. So what I was doing at first, I was talking about how the Earth was young. So I realized then that maybe I'm wrong. So from that point on, I kind of changed my position a little bit from being sure that evolution is wrong and that the Earth is 6,000 years old to maybe it's not. Maybe I need to be a little more neutral on this position. I still was a little bit creationist-y. I leaned toward creationism at that point. And from that point on, I talked to people like Gentry, if you guys know who that is, Polonium Halos guy, and I ended up rejecting young Earth creationism, because I realized even the creationists recognize that if the Earth is 6,000 years old, that requires so much heat to be generated from the acceleration of radiation that the Earth would be vaporized. They recognize this, but they think that the Earth expansion would somehow make the universe cool. I'm just like, okay, that's just ridiculous. So I rejected young Earth creationism at that point. And then after that, I decided to come on YouTube. And I was aware of Nephilim Free and the Hovind videos, and I recognized, I thought they were both idiots. And even though was leaning towards creationism. So my plan was to come onto YouTube and make a group of creationists that were actually intelligent, or so I thought anyway, and I was going to debate Nephilim Free and show how stupid his arguments were, and then bring up other better arguments for creationism. But I guess what happened from there is whenever I finally totally deconverted from creationism, and basically I just realized that even though there were some questions with evolution, overall evolution made the most sense. Even though I didn't understand everything, it fit the best with everything that we have, all them. So I just decided that it would be inconsistent for me to recognize that and not accept it. So I started accepting it. And here's the last thing. From that point, I actually just rejected Genesis totally. I just decided Genesis supports a young earth, so I'm just going to reject it. And it's not true. But then I realized that, because what I thought was that people were just trying to change Genesis, you know, how they make an allegory or whatever. I thought that they were just trying to change it to fit the Darwinian model. But then I realized that actually people like Augustine, like 1400 years, 1600 years, whatever it was before Darwin's time, in church. So I accepted that. And that's whenever I totally accepted evolution and the Bible both together. And that's when I became a theistic evolutionist.
Okay. Aidan, Chihuahua, or Zell, got any questions for him?
Nope.
I mean, my question is, this is actually something I would like to see all of us get to answer, and then I'll hopefully start bringing in callers. I'm not sure if there are any that are actually online, but Ouchie, Aaron, and I guess also to myself, what is the favorite thing you ever said? Your favorite thing you ever said when you were a creationist? Of all the stupid things you said, what do you think is the stupidest idea?
Can I go first?
Sure.
Okay. It was in my video. I'll hunt it down and play it. But
I won't play it on here. I will hunt it down and watch it later. But I will not
We promised we wouldn't play it.
It doesn't matter what the video is called. Okay. So I was just talking about random stuff, and then yeah, I live in Texas. So I was talking just like about random things that relate to evolution, and I was, being stupid. It's probably the dumbest video I ever made. And I said something along the lines of, well, scientists say that matter cannot be created or destroyed, but God created the universe, so that disproves that law. It's hilarious. Like,
Okay, I have two or three. It's impossible for me to pick one. One is my idea, Jericho, not strictly defending but did you guys know what resonant frequencies are? Where there's a certain frequency that will cause any given thing to have a catastrophic failure. If you play the right tone to a glass, it will break because of the way the resonant frequency. I had thought that the reason the wall of Jericho fell was because the ram's horn and or the marching hit the resonant frequency of the wall and actually knocked it down, which not the force of the sound waves, but by hitting it at resonant frequency.
That's hilarious.
That was kind of inspired.
Mine was better though.
I mean, that's my favorite. And my second favorite thing I ever said was on the League of Reason forums. I said essentially that the reason this was intended as an analogy is because it's analogous to taking a little pebble. Abiogenesis is putting the pebble in your hands. Now, with evolution, it's like trying to take a piece of sandpaper and make the pebble bigger somehow. Because I believe that all mutations were by definition decay or genetic entropy.
That doesn't make sense.
Therefore, just like grinding a rock against sandpaper will never make it bigger, you can never make a life form better, because better was a concept in biology for me when I was a creationist. By just like you can never make a rock bigger, you can never make a biological life form better by putting entropy into the DNA. So,
How, Chihuahua?
It's been such a long time, but the last thing I remember, I can't remember. It's been so long.
Yeah, I think he knows about it, but it's so embarrassing that he's pretending to not.
Alright, Lock-Kid, is everyone finished making the evolution story, or... Because I think Lock-Kid was last to speak, so do you want to say anything, Lock-Kid?
he's not an creationist, so I mean...
No, I mean, he might have some, like, sort of story, or maybe he's probably dealt with them the most.
Well, I could talk about my experience with creationists, but it would be, like, very short.
Yeah, we're going to let you go.
Okay.
We'll let you go on.
Okay, well, obviously, everyone knows that I've been from the very early days that I can remember, I've been a theistic evolutionist, always have been, and I went to my own Orthodox catechism. Of course, there was no problem at all with the accepted scientific dates for the Earth. Same thing when I went to my private Catholic school. I was kind of forced to go to catechism, despite that I was an Orthodox, but I didn't mind, because I wasn't forced to, like, talk much. But sometimes, they brought in, because it was a pretty prestigious school, they brought in some, biologist or some, astronomist. And at one point, sometimes they would, describe, some stuff about, the universe or the natural world, and at one point they would say, okay, we know this from this experiment that shows conclusively that, say, Archaeopteryx had specific reptilian features that it acquired through a very beautiful and rich biological process. And then he'd get to say, like, something in lines of, isn't God a wonderful genius? And, that was really okay. Now, to come to the real experience with creationists, mostly it was on the internet. When I first went on YouTube, I was mostly about video games, politics, and, traditions of various countries. And one day, a random guy, I don't even know his name, sent me a video of Ken Ham from Answers in Genesis, basically, saying that evolution was, wrong and the age of the Earth was like 6,000 years old, mutations were harmful, etc. And at first, I thought it was a joke, because I have never encountered a young Earth creationist in my life. So, I actually PM'd the guy and said, that was really great. I had, it made my day. Who is this comedian? And the guy then went into a diatribe calling me, like, evil and bad and an evolutionist. And, it was at this point that I realized that, this was not comedy. And I didn't understand, so I did a bit of research. I thought, young Earth creationists were some kind of group, that would fall into urban myth, a bit like, flat earthers. But my naivety really fell short when I discovered that these guys were very prominent and active in certain countries in the world. And the reason why I didn't hear about them in France was because the education system we have was extremely centralized. And actually, I learned that in 2004, Harun Yahweh actually tried to send textbooks to our university to try, and creep in, his brand of creationism in French schools, but it was, thrown into the trash bins, because, the government really took this affair out quickly. And the only real-life experience I had with creationists was this week when my sister invited me to a party, Thanksgiving party, some American friend of hers had. And so, we were eating turkey, and having dinner. At one point, a guy joked, about, saying grace, and I said we couldn't do that because I already started eating my turkey. And the guy kind of joked, I said, aha, God will punish you. Well, that is, if you're an atheist evolutionist. And normally if I was on the internet, I'd be like, what? You're serious? No? Well, I'm sorry, you're kidding, right? And because I didn't want to spoil the fun, I, said I'd let it slip, basically. But really, yeah, basically never heard or seen much of creationist stuff in real life, I'm afraid. There.
And here's the thing. When I was a young Earth creationist, this is just something I'd forgotten to say while I was telling my story. I think one of the reasons that I was able to be kept in so long is because all of the intelligent rebuttals to creationist arguments, all of them are the evil evolution promoters. The guys who you will occasionally encounter in everyday life know nothing. I mean, I once, one of the few people I ever encountered that was I think an atheist, as a creationist, and I had a slight debate with this person. After we had made peace, another guy said it was two twins. It was actually two identical twins. One of whom said he thought it was, and I quote, more of a mutational process, unquote. I think that it's because the public is just as ignorant as creationists. I mean, the only difference between a typical creationist and a typical non-creationist is the fact that, the typical creationist doesn't accept evolution, the typical non-creationist does, but both of them have no understanding of it, and that's why I think creationists do so well, because, I mean, if you walked up to a PhD scientist, showed them a Kent Hovind, I've always wanted to see a scientist who had never heard of young Earth creationism before, and just seen him watch one of Kent Hovind's seminars, or watch a video by Nephilim Free, just to see how he reacted.
I think that this was mentioned in Ken Miller's book, Finding Darwin's God. Maybe Bossman will confirm this because he has a copy nearby. But basically he does, I think, mention in his book, fellow scientists saying, because, Ken Miller is, talks about intelligent design, and, debunks creationism. And some of his fellow scientists actually told him, and as he recalls it in his book, are these guys for real? And, when you said that, I thought about this. Sorry.
The person who said they thought it was more of a mutational process, that person accepted evolution. That's the thing. Those people, the people who you encounter who accept evolution are usually as stupid as the random people you encounter on the street that don't. The average person I believe the average person is a monumental idiot. That's just.
Okay, chaps. We've got a question from Blood TV, which is, what do you think of the term evolutionist? I'll let you all go on that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of it's meant to, of course, match creationists to make them sound like they're both belief systems. You saw earlier I used non-creationist there. So, I think that it's a derogatory slur, and I especially hate being called a theistic evolutionist. Because I'm also a theistic germist, a theistic atomist, so atomist is actually code for naturalist in some circles, so, I'm a theistic gravitationalist, I accept all of these things and still believe in a God.
Okay, Lucky, you want to go next?
On the whole evolutionist term, I think it's not really in the dictionary, but personally I don't care because I mainly use it for practical, uses when, in this kind of debate. But what the Poppy said about, theistic evolutionist, theistic gravitationalist, that's basically true for any of us theistic evolutionists. But most of all, what I don't understand in, when talking about, creationist being opposed to evolution because, it's an evil theory against, God and creation. Well, as some of you may know, Darwin actually studied in theology, and actually his results didn't have really the purpose of trying to debunk a literal interpretation of Genesis at first. But on the other hand, if you look at something like atomic theory, before being a scientific theory, was actually a philosophical concept, advanced by atheists of basically ancient Greeks, people like Democritus, Epicurus, people like that. Epicurus, I think, went to the extent that to say, literally, as the creationists would believe evolutionists say, that the universe literally came about by random chance. So, why are creationists opposed to biological evolution? They should be more opposed to atomic theory. That's my rant moment, basically.
Yeah, it's also if I may, atomic theory. There's also more evidence against it. I mean, they can't even come up with a model of what atoms look like that will consistently work with the observations. I mean, one model, there's circumstances under which that works fine, but there's circumstances under which it doesn't. All of the models of atomic motion, all of the models of atomism, they all tend to fail. So atomism is a religion designed to deny the existence of Jesutrons, which.
Yeah, you could also
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say. I was just gonna ask you who had done. Sorry about that. Sorry. You guys continue. Sorry.
Okay. What I also like is creationists using the "were you there" argument, which is denying the antecedent fallacy. But you could actually make a bit the similar argument for atomic theory. You're saying that atoms, constitute matter. How do you know? Did you see them? Which is pretty much a stupid argument. But you could basically make a creationism thing with atoms.
I mean, my favorite element of the "how do you know, were you there" argument is the fact that we haven't seen most of the evolutionary processes that have occurred throughout time and recorded by humans because we ourselves originated from the processes and can't have recorded that what happened before we were here. But here's the thing. They never saw God created the universe. They haven't seen creation. And in fact, I would say that we're actually better than they are because we've at least seen microevolution, but there is no micro-creation. Creationism is completely, that phenomenon is unobserved. So if they're going to say, how do you know that evolution happened, were you there? I would return with, how do you know the creation happened, were you there? Both of them commit the same fallacy. And also, how do you know the resurrection happened? Were you there? Did you see it? Because, I mean, the whole idea is that historical science, any kind of science is unreliable. Any evidence, except for observational evidence, is unreliable. Given that is the case, I mean, what about the resurrection?
You got the Bible.
Okay, Uchi wanted to speak, and then it's Aaron K after that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've heard a bunch of people have a problem with evolutionists, using evolutionists as a term, because it's belief, it implies belief system, or implies it's like creationism. But I don't really have a problem with it because it's just a description. To me, it's just a descriptive term. I mean, to define everybody inside of this group. And I mean, if you do have a problem with it, I would like to know if you have a better word to use. So that's all I have to say.
Aaron, you like to go next?
Someone complained that the volume was too low. Did I just fix? Okay. Good.
Okay. Basically, I'm the kind of person that sort of takes, or at least tries to, take words on their face value, and I really can't stand, like, sometimes I just can't stand these people who just, like, read between the lines and try to derive just way too much from something when it doesn't, when, you know, it's obviously, that's just speculation. So basically, I think that applies here. I mean, just look at the word evolutionist. All it means is one who believes or accepts the theory of evolution. So, I mean, I don't really pay attention to connotation very much because, I mean, I just dislike connotation altogether. If you even know what that, if you understand what I'm saying there. So, I'm with evolutionists because it just means someone who accepts evolution. So, yeah.
Okay. Will someone please call in because we're running out of random things to say.
Yeah, if I was to make a call, go to the Fishing Time show or Fishing Time.
Is Warrior Christian here?
Warrior Christian is in the call, yes, and let me put it this way: if he tries to call in, he's opposed. So I mean,
he is.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I kind of expected that.
He's Oliver. He's Oliver. That's Oliver Scott 2007 full account.
Oh, yeah. Kind of lame that we can't actually have someone who really believes that.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, the creationist front, if I can call it like that, has been really silent lately. The only people who actually are, you know, actively talking about creationism is Shock of God, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Shock of God, Nephilim Free.
No, Nephilim Free is like, he isn't there since like 3 or 4 months now.
No, he's come back.
Jesus Freak, sort of. He talks about it sometimes.
Well, yeah, Nephilim Free's just been doing like William Lane Craig stuff, though.
Well, that's better. I like William Lane.
I mean, it's odd that, you know, they're kind of bringing William Lane Craig as a popular character. I don't mind that much. But what I do mind is when William Lane Craig actually talks about, you know, evolution and intelligent design. I have some of my personal beefs, personally, with William Lane Craig. Like, some of his arguments aren't really that good. Some of them are just poorly thought out, in my opinion. And, it's, you know, one of the things that William Lane Craig argues, like for biological evolution, philosophically proving the existence of God. I heard it many times being trumped by Shock of God. It's actually pretty curious, and I'm wondering if you guys think that William Lane Craig is like a dishonest guy or not.
Should I let him? Oh.
Right. So who wants to go first? Sorry. If we've got to do this properly.
I mean, my thing with Craig, I have that same beef with Craig. He's an intelligent design proponent. Should I bring the first caller in?
Yes, have we got a caller?
And the reason that's a question is because I know for a fact that this person is a Poe because they have confessed to me that they are.
What's your question, query, statement?
Okay, my question is regarding the Genesis account. To what degree do you accept it, if you accept it at all, and the whole concept of original sin?
I mean, I don't believe there is any such thing as original sin, because I'm a Protestant. I subscribe to sola scriptura, and the concept does not exist scripturally. I take it as an urban legend, like essentially like the mark of, like, any other thing, like the garbling of the Book of Revelation and all of that. There's no such thing as original sin, and also, I would say that Genesis 1 through 11, I assume that's the slice of it you're talking about. That's, the part that creationists are dedicated to defending. I don't think there's any ground in reality in the sense that it, in any way.
Okay, that blows my mind, because then what on earth are we supposedly being saved from? But if anyone else wants to answer.
The sense
Yes.
that
Sorry.
Sorry, Aaron K says he wants to go next, and then Puppy Turtle wants to go after that. So, Aaron K.
All right, thank you. That's a very interesting question. First of all, to the extent the Genesis account, or to what extent do I accept the Genesis account? If you're talking about the creation account in chapter 1, I would have to say that it's all more historical poetry or an allegory, which it's long been interpreted as such by people such as St. Augustine, a long, over 1,000 years before Darwin. I mean, I've heard some people say that this supposedly recent, wave of people interpreting Genesis differently is in response to evolution, which is completely wrong because, I don't know if you believe that or not, but just to clarify, a lot of people, way before Darwin started interpreting Genesis other than the literal way. Now, regarding original sin, I wouldn't go so far as to say that it doesn't exist, but I think it's really sort of overplayed, and I would have to disagree with whoever went before me. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at this. That when he said that there's no scriptural basis for original sin at all, I would actually say that there is, sort of, and it's found in Romans chapter 5, verse 12. Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so men, for that all have sinned. That's really the only verse that you could derive anything like original sin from that. But as J.P. Holding points out, if you read it in the original Greek, it's not so much that sin is that Adam's sin passes on to everyone else, but it's that Adam's sin made the punishment of sin possible. And he gives the example, J.P. Holding gives the example of when cars were first invented. Before cars were invented, the stealing a car did not exist because there weren't any cars to steal. But then when cars existed, people started to steal cars, and that initial act of the person that first stole the car made available the punishment of people to steal cars. So I wouldn't say that it doesn't exist, but I think it's sort of overstated. And in response to what you were talking about, I would say the Orthodox view of the death of Jesus is not one of original sin. In Orthodox theology, he's not saving us from the sin that Adam passed on to us. He's saving us and defeating the powers of Satan, and by defeating death in his resurrection, he sort of undercut the kingdom of Satan because his kingdom was based on death. So basically, Jesus, at least in my personal theological beliefs, did not actually die to wipe away the stain of original sin. He died to defeat the powers of evil. So, at least from my theological view, that really isn't a problem.
The question that we said from was directed to me.
Sorry, have you finished, Aaron K?
Yes.
Okay, Puppet Turtle, you next, and then it's Larkin after you.
Here's the thing. Original sin thing, I kind of find that idea of original sin must exist, otherwise what are we saved from? That's so trivial to me because, even the people who believe in original sin, does an unregenerate person, an unsaved person, really need Adam's sin to send them to hell? Don't they have enough of their own stuff to get them there, to be saved from? That's what I believe. I don't believe I was saved from Adam's original sin. I believe I was saved from, my own sins. That's, I believe, what the scripture, indicates.
Lucky, you were next. Were you?
Yes, I was. On this issue of what are we being saved on, again, as an Orthodox, I'm going to agree for a major part with what Aaron said. When you read the passages in Greek, you know, it is clearly said that Jesus, did not, resurrected not to save us from, original sin, which, if I'm correct, was a concept, brought up by Saint Augustine, and, gave the idea that basically sin was something genetic passed through the act of sex. Despite, some claims in scripture that, the sins of the fathers are not passed to those of, are not passed to their sons and daughters. But, more specifically in Orthodox theology, I'm not going to call it, I guess I'll call it ancestral sin. What Adam and Eve did was, basically, an allegory to show that, by basically going to temptation to Satan, it basically allowed him to, get them into the slavery of evil, fear, hate, and basically death. And when Christ conquered evil and Satan through his resurrection, we are allowed a communion with God, and that's basically, I think, where my explanation rant thingy ends. Yeah.
Okay, Warrior Christian, do you want to respond to any of that?
Okay, I'm just recalling a verse, and I can't recall, it must have been one of Paul's letters, which says, just as Adam, one man can kind of screw up all humanity, so can one man bring salvation to all humanity. It doesn't sound like you subscribe to this kind of thing. I mean, if there was someone who did, I'd ask them, how can you kind of mix up this allegory with, at this point, what is literal? Because when you get to Christ and the crucifixion and such, that's taken to be literal. So I would ask anyone there how you'd be mixing the things up, but it doesn't sound like any of you guys really go for that.
It's Lucky next to it's you. Fisher time, sorry.
Okay, I'd say, let me get this straight, as a clarification. You're basically asking why we, consider Genesis to be allegorical, but why we consider, the resurrection of Christ to be something literal, right?
It's a bit more than that. I wouldn't have the question if, say, it said, just as people sinned in the past, Christ can redeem. I mean, it says just as one man, Adam, can screw it up, one man can redeem it. As if Adam should be taken literally. And you're mixing that up with something which you should be taking more literally.
Well, again, Adam, if I'm correct, originally means mankind. If I'm correct, maybe Aaron K. or someone else will correct me on this. But so I think even the name of Adam is something allegorical in its nature. And I mean, if you take, the passages of Genesis, they've always been understood as something allegorical, while, Christ's resurrection is taken literally for the simple reason that we Christians consider it to have really happened as a historical fact. Yeah.
Okay, have you finished that, Kin? I'm going to have the Fisher time each tomorrow, and then we'll go back to Warrior Christian, okay?
Please call me Puppy, because that's my normal name. But I would say that it's not necessarily the case. You can have original sin without having a literal Genesis. You can just say that when the first Cro-Magnon, or when the first Homo sapiens sinned, or perhaps even the first Cro-Magnon, it may have been a couple species before us, when the first sentient being sinned, and it's been passed down ever since. So in a way, you don't need a literal Genesis to have one person screw everything up. Because having one person screw everything up does not mean that there is nobody else around, or nobody else around except his wife. Because, I mean, there were other people around when Jesus redeemed, so, you don't need a literal Genesis to have original sin. Not that there is such a thing as original sin in the sense that you mean, where the guilt of Adam's sin is, the one responsible for the fact that we experience temptation, and two, is something that we're held accountable for, even if we ourselves lived a sinless life. It doesn't work like that, but you can have original sin, even in that sense, but especially in the sense that there was a first sin, without any of that. I mean,
I'll go ahead and go.
Okay, each of us will back to Warrior Christian, okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the verse you're referring to is Romans 5:12, and what it says is that therefore, just as through one man sin entered into the world, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all sinned. And it talks about how the law is basically what Paul's view was, which either Paul or Luke wrote this, I guess, was, from my perspective, is that sin entered into the world because the law entered into the world. So, I mean, and it also says in here that all men sin, so it doesn't really support, in my view, it doesn't support original sin in that sense, other than that the law came at the same time that Adam sinned. Because Adam sinned, it all spreads out from him, and everybody's automatically a sinner once they're born.
Well, the very sin itself, allegedly, enters the world through one man. And just as it enters through one man, it can be redeemed through one other man. So the first guy who spoke, I have to reject what he said about Adam being used as a word to describe man in general, because it's actually saying one man.
Well, it would technically have to be one man. Because
can we have it one of the time and a bit of decorum, please? So, who wants to speak first?
I'll respond to what Oliver said.
Ichiwara said first, so I'll let him. Then, if you want to speak, Puppy, I'll let you go. Okay, Ichiwara, do you have a response to that?
No matter how you look at it, it would technically have to be one man because somebody had to sin first. I mean, it's not like you can have 10 men sin at first. So, I mean, from my perspective, is if the law came in. And I guess, I mean, I don't really know that much about this, but I guess what it would be is the knowledge of good and evil came in through the law. And so whenever Adam accepted the law, that gave him the ability to sin, something like that. But either way, in any case, it has to be one man. It's not like you can just take 10 people and they sin at the same time or whatever.
Okay, Fisher time.
If nothing else, building on what Aochihuahua said, and you didn't respond to my point, or you're Christian, that the thing is, you don't need a literal Genesis to have original sin. As Aochihuahua just said, it could have been the first person, and even if it could have been 10 people, we can simply interpret this passage as assuring us that it wasn't. So I mean, as long as it's possible that there was a single first person who ever sinned and brought death, wouldn't have actually been Adam, it would have been Eve. As long as you can verify that, I mean, as long as that can possibly be the case.
Warrior Christian was next, so I'll let him speak.
Okay, I'm not. My question was, I wasn't really ever intending to get into can you have original sin without Adam. I'm very curious, why has Paul written mixing the two things up as literal and allegorical? He's saying just as sin can enter the world through one man, so too it can be redeemed through one man. Why doesn't he say just as sin entered the world in Genesis and actually mention that that was not a literal story? The way he phrases this has me believing that it's intended all to be literal.
Okay, who wants to respond? That kid, please.
How do you... I don't really see how you can conclude that because he mentions Adam, I guess, as a person, you would conclude that everything in Genesis is supposed to be taken literally. In my opinion, you could only, from this passage, conclude that Adam was maybe, someone in history. Sorry, not maybe, someone in history, at best.
I mean, it's entirely possible that
you're supposed to first hand, okay? So do you want to go next, Public Turtle?
Yes.
Okay.
It's entirely possible that the first person who ever sinned was named Adam, or specifically was a woman named out a name who was later named Eve. There's no reason why that isn't possible. But the issue is that we know that the literal interpretation you're going for, even independently of Scripture, Warrior Christian, we know for a fact, scientifically, that is not true. So, for me, I think even if there's no hint that it should be taken allegorically, as long as it's possible to, since we know for a fact that evolution is true and that creationism is not, if it's even possible to adapt it, ignoring the hints that it probably should be anyway, if it's even possible, you must in order to make your Christianity more concordant with reality.
Okay, Warrior Christian, do you have a response to that?
Not really. As you say, just because it doesn't say it, as someone who reads this, I'd far prefer for it to be stated. Okay. Warrior Christian's got off the call. So does anyone want to talk about what Warrior Christian was saying, or have we finished that?
Yeah, we have the next caller is on pretty soon. If that guy is actually, I happen to know a Poe, but still, he did give some good questions. It's the issue. The reason that evolution and Christianity are compatible is because I've actually written my little personal statement of faith. And I think it's the basics of Christianity. The thing, it's 4 lines. It reads, ancient Israel was led by a theistic trinity composed of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. He promised them that a Christ would be 2,000 years ago. Jesus fulfilled that prophecy. He was the incarnation of the Son. He lived a sinless life before dying on the cross for our sins. Then he rose from the dead on the 3rd day. And if you have repent and have faith in him, you will have salvation. That's the essence of Christianity. And I'm sure anybody I say to them that that's the essence of it will agree with me. But then if they're a creationist, they'll turn around and say that Genesis is necessary, even though I can summarize the essence of the Old and New Testament without mentioning it. And there is a next caller on, so,
alright, sorry, chaps. I mean, do she and Lopkin want to speak before the next caller, or?
Yeah.
It's up to you. Alright, I'll let Uchi and Lopkin speak and then we'll have the next caller, okay? So, Uchi Baba?
Yeah, it seemed like what he was saying was, it seemed like the typical idea that just a straightforward reading of Genesis, and then that's just how we should read it. I don't know if that's what he was saying, but that's a typical argument that I hear, and that's just kind of silly, because you need to actually read the context and understand the language in order to, well, maybe not even understand the language, but you need to understand some of the context in order to understand, to interpret the verse. You can't just straightforwardly read the book. And I know non-stamp collectors probably facepalming right now, but whatever.
He's not watching, fortunately.
Okay, we've got Lucky and then we'll the next caller.
Okay, just two things. First of all, I think it's been pretty clear in history that one of the reasons why science and Christianity are compatible, it was that the early church and in the Orthodox Church too, and other denominations also to some extent, and some completely, have not dogmatized anything, any position about reality. So yeah, that's the first thing. Now the second thing is that in regards again to the questions that have been asked, one of my complaints about some, I guess, atheists taking saying you have to take scripture literally if you want to be a true Christian, is that in some way they are unwillingly favoring creationism. I mean, you could bring up all the quote mines by Richard Dawkins or people like that saying the only possibility you can accept a God and evolution is if God was a deistic God or something like that, which isn't really true. Again, Richard Dawkins is wrong on certain philosophical positions, but really maybe some atheists who say why there are so many creationists in our country lamenting about that should be a bit more careful about what they say. Again, that's my opinion.
Okay, I think we've got another caller, so can we have them?
Okay. Next caller. No idea what he's meant to say or whatever.
Okay, State Bite Go, what is your question, query, or statement?
I just wanted to know, what are your thoughts on basically, why does creationism have to basically does evolution have to be mainstream? Like, does it have to be in the mainstream of things? Can they just live side by side? Like, one of them could just be homeschooled and such, or private schooled or whatever, and one could just be public. Do you think that's valid, or do you think that's impossible?
Could you rephrase the question?
Just a bit. Press next, please, hand, if that's okay. Yeah, State Bite Go, could you just rephrase that, please?
I understand it.
Okay, Poppy Turtle, do you want to go first?
Yeah. What he was asking is essentially why does one view have to have dominance in the public schools, and specifically why does evolution have to over creationism? I think, and that is the answer to that is because we can go into the fossil record, we can go into science, and I can point at this, see right there, that proves creationism is false. And I can point out at this other thing that proves that evolution is true, that the evolution is accurate, and that creationism is not. That's why creationism should not be taught in public schools, because you shouldn't teach something that has been proven absolutely wrong, and you should teach things that have been proven absolutely right if they're appropriate for the class and age group.
Okay, Lucky, Aaron K, then back to State Bite Go.
Okay, awesome question, because this is actually interesting. Now, the reason why creationism should not be taught in public schools is not because, it's wrong or it's evil or whatever. The main issue can be exclusively described as a legal issue. Now, as many of you know, one of the basic foundations for a democratic society, modern democratic society, is actually secularism, laicity, separation of church and state, whatever you call it. Now, in, say, America, that would be the First Amendment, how it is interpreted by the supreme institutions of the USA, and so on. And one of the things that prevents creationism legally to be taught in public schools is that it is basically a violation of the First Amendment to teach creationism in public schools. Well, how so? Well, it's pretty easy, actually. It's because, by definition, as you may know, the separation of church and state demands that the church does not get involved in the institutions in the state, things like that. And reciprocally, the state does not intervene with the variant churches and in religious denominations of, that it, currently has. And in teaching creationism, in public schools, creationism is highly religiously connotated, as, logic would dictate. The state is actually, supporting a religious explanation, and already that is enough. But even if creationism didn't have the intent to, promote, religion, just the fact that it promotes religious explanations already, by definition, dismisses it in public schools. For more info on this, I would urge you to check, case laws regarding the First Amendment and separation of church and state, and maybe for a more evolution creation context to that, I'd urge you to check the Arkansas case on that and how, creationism was banned from public schools. I think it was in the 1970s. It's a very famous case law. And, of course, the Kitzmiller versus Dover case law of 2005. There.
Okay, ROK, and then back to Snakebite Gold.
Okay, the Fish of Time made a very good distinction in the text box down below, where he said he's describing that's why it can't be taught, not why it shouldn't be taught. That's a very important distinction. Be taught is I would agree with what the previous person said, which basically because it's a clear violation of the First Amendment, and that's why it can't be taught. Why it shouldn't be taught is simply because it's not only incorrect, but there's just no evidence for it. Now, something to be taught, it doesn't just have to be non-contradictory to education law or the Constitution. That's not a criterion for teaching. Basically, something, at least in my opinion, something to be able to teach something, it has to be either overwhelmingly correct, or it has to be supported by some degree of pretty persuasive evidence. And creationism is not supported by evidence, and it's also illegal to teach Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. So creationism not only shouldn't be taught, but can't be taught in the public school. So, yeah, that would be my 2 cents there.
Okay, Snakebite Goat, do you have a rebuttal to that?
Speak!
Hoffman, new rule. After about 10 seconds of no one talking, someone who didn't type hand is allowed to chime in. Line attention without typing.
Will that be okay? Steve, go. Do you have anything to add? Just like rebut, you know, if
I'll be hanging up now. That's all.
Okay.
You said no in the text.
Thank you very much. Right. So, who wants to speak?
That is the entire. So.
Come here, folks. Don't be shy. We won't bite you.
So, who wants to speak first? So, who wants to speak on what those two guys spoke on?
And then.
Okay, Ichiwala, do you want to speak on what Snakeback Gold was talking about?
I'm not really interested, to be honest.
Alright.
Okay, have I got another caller, or is that it?
We don't have any more callers right now. If anybody wants to call in, send a Skype invite to the Fish of Time show, and you will be dragged in within a couple seconds if there's no line.
Okay, Latkin wants to go next, so...
Yes, I would like to make a suggestion. Again, what is, to everyone here participating in this show, what is the most ludicrous, like your top 3 most ludicrous creationist claim you've ever heard? Not just, you've made in the past, but, that you've ever heard ever. I'll give mine. The two first are from, Kent Hovind, when he said, why would, unicellular organisms, evolve, to become multicellular and stuff? Why couldn't they just evolve the ability to live forever and be happy? That was, of course, stupid. The second one is when he argued that if evolution was true, then, we would be able to grow, pigs like the size of Texas. It was in his seminar. I just watched it recently. It's called 100 Reasons Why Evolution is Stupid. It was And the final one is a comment that was actually showed by Desert File, if any of you know him. A creationist argued that if evolution was true, then black people in Africa would be running faster than cheetahs.
What the?
Okay, Fish of Time. Sorry, Ichiwaba, then Fish of Time, then okay.
The what though was involuntary. I apologize.
Sorry.
Okay. I think the first most crazy one is going to be Nephilim Free's idea that the craters on the moon were created by the Noah's flood. And then after that would be of course the pine cone argument, the one that Truthful Christian brought up, that pine cones should have been larger in the past. Why aren't they large? Or why were they larger in the past if evolution is true? And then finally, the last one, I guess it would be the one with where they argue that Neanderthals are just old men with rickets. That one's kind of crazy.
Okay, Fish of Time and then Aaron K.
Alright, I would say the stupidest thing I've ever heard a creationist say is what I call the Milwaukeean Death Star hypothesis. This is Carl Baugh's explanation for the asteroid belts. And here's how it works. It's pretty convoluted, alright? Now, according to him, there was a lot of seismic activity during Noah's flood. And seismic activity has the tendency to create microwave radiation and shoot it off into space. Alright, so what he says happened to form the asteroid belts is the earthquake, the seismic activity from the flood shot microwaves into space, which went out to a planet called Ceres in the asteroid belt, blew it up, and the resulting debris from that is what we now know of as the asteroid. When I heard that for the first time when I saw Lithidid Man debunk it, when I heard that, I'm like, what? What? And it's just like, I mean, the scripture he based it on is, when David said somewhere else in a war, while fighting a war, that the foundations of heaven were moved by, like, his awesome victory or something. But he, of course, isolated out of that concept and just said the foundations of heaven were shook. This is talking about how the flood destroyed a planet out there with its microwave radiation and made the asteroid belt. That's the stupidest thing a creationist has ever said. Ever. Oh, and Mystical Forest's infamous statement, or at least it should be infamous, that even the smallest single-celled organism has natural selection. Of an organism that does not have natural selection, evolving into one that does. Therefore, there's no evidence that natural selection is an evolutionary process.
Okay, it's Aruke, then Latkin, then Nuchibaba.
Okay, there's so many stupid arguments, but I think probably one of the dumbest ones is that old Kent Hovind claim about how you've never seen a dog give birth to a cat, or you've never seen, yeah, you get the idea. I'm just like saying, you realize that evolution is a gradual process, right? I mean, different species of animal don't just pop out of other animals. It's just so incredibly stupid.
Okay,
I guess it's my turn, right?
Latkin, go.
Okay. About, the whole Ceres thing and Karl Barr, I saw it too on Lithidid Man's thing. I thought, at first he was, describing the Nephilim free, sending, craters, ice shards to the moon, making craters everywhere, which is actually taken from Walter Brown's hydroplate theory, if we could call it that, I guess. But at first I thought he was talking about that, and then what? Seriously, I mean, the way he said it, and the Poppy Turtle talking about David, it sounds as if David decided to shoot the whoop and destroy the whole planet by himself. That would be awesome, but I guess it's a bit fantastic. No, not a bit. Absolutely fantastic.
I'm a fire in my stupid!
Okay, Uchibaba, you next.
We have a caller lined up, boss man, so...
Okay, yeah. So after Uchibaba, we'll take the caller, okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Karl Ball was the guy that the Puppy Turtle was talking about, who talked about the Death Star planet or whatever. I just wanted to mention that he also has another part of this theory, which is I think I mentioned it earlier. I don't know if you guys remember that, but he thinks that all of creation, all of the planets make these it's like an orchestra, and that the planet that was blown up that created the asteroid belt orchestra, that if we had it back before the universe expanded and all the planets were closer to us or something, that we would be able to hear music coming from the heavens.
Absurd.
Lol.
Okay, add the caller. Okay, alright, Rationalizer, okay.
Again!
Okay, hello, Rationalizer, how are you, sir?
Hiya guys, you alright?
Yeah, fine. What's your question, query, or statement?
Oh, I can actually hear you now. The main reason for me calling into the show was so that I could hear what you were saying. So I can't hear anything on Blog TV at all.
You can?
Alright. Bob just modding the channel, so what's your question, query, or statement?
I went to, have you guys heard of Harun Yahya?
Yes.
Yes, a Muslim. For you, those of you watching, that's an Islamic young Earth creationist.
Yeah.
He's
from
an old
Turkey.
Earth creationist, if I'm correct.
Yeah, he's an old Earth creationist. And but it's certainly anti-evolution. And I mean, he's vested interested, obviously, that because the Quran is supposedly the exact words of God, and the Quran seems to talk about God making humans in their exact form and made all humans from two humans and things like this. Obviously, evolution causes a bit of a problem for Islam, so he's very anti-evolutionary. He was doing a world tour, evolution, fact or fiction, and they had one of these up my neck of the woods, and I managed to get a recording on it, which is on my YouTube channel. It's audio only, but I mean, I can't tell you what the most stupid thing is that I've ever heard a creationist say in regards to evolution, because I literally sat there through 2 hours of stupid. I couldn't pick out a single thing. It started off with evolution was invented by Charles Darwin, who was a Freemason, in order to turn people away from God, because of course, the Freemasons want us to turn away from God so that they can herald in the coming of the Antichrist.
A Muslim.
Then, of course, the atheism naturally leads to Marxism and Nazism, and basically the whole World War stuff was all about people being atheists, and if we'd all just been Muslims, none of it would have ever happened. And then, I mean, from there, it was just stuff like, Darwin was racist. He said that white people are more evolved than black people and things like this. But then, a really long argument from ignorance, a single protein refutes evolution because the chance of a protein simply forming fully formed by pure chance is zero. It's like, they're trying to say like, oh well, evolution can't work because the chances of one day you've got an empty ocean, there's a protein in it, is zero. So that's like, oh well, you've got me then. And then the saying that like, there are no intermediary fossils, and you laugh at crocoducks, right? But literally, the slide on the screen had crocoducks on it. No joke. It actually had crocoducks on it. And so, ducks don't give birth to crocodiles, and there are no intermediate species, and literally showed a duck's body with a crocodile head on it. There are no intermediate species. And then, showed another slide of a starfish on the left, and a fish on the right, and then in the middle, you've got, the head of a fish with the body of a starfish. And he said, we don't observe any intermediary fossils. It's all a load of rubbish. And then when he looked at, you get all the hominid fossils, and rather than saying we put them in chronological order based on the age of the sedimentary layer they were found in, right? He said all they did was line them up from little to big. but all they've proven is that in the past, some people used to be little, and then showing slides of small people to say, look, some people are small, so it just proves evolution. And then they brought up the subject of Tiktaalik rosy, the intermediate between fish and tetrapods, and said, oh no, scientists discovered an intermediate fossil between sea and land life. It was just a crocodile. It was great. It It was absolutely brilliant. And then, of course, you know, they used the old Fred Hoyle argument that a tornado ripping through a scrapyard wouldn't create a Boeing 747. And then they throw in lots of stuff like, you know, evolution believes that things just happen all on their own, but evolution can't create new information. Then they'll show pictures of ducks with 4 legs and stuff and say, look, this four-legged duck, you know, is useless, therefore evolution doesn't happen. I mean, why they think that God's creating 4-legged ducks, I just don't know. But to sit through it, it was unbelievably awful. And it's all on the channel. It's about sat there quietly listening, and you know, it took a lot of effort to sit there quietly. And then in the end, I just couldn't shut up, and I just started shouting at the bloke. I was just shouting, "You're telling him a load of rubbish," you know. And I just started arguing with him. One of the things was they showed a slide, and they were saying, "Look, this is how evolutionists explain the origin of flight." And one day a dinosaur was running along, and it had a little arm, and it was chasing a fly because it wanted to eat it, and it started flapping his arms, and slowly the arm developed feathers, and it could go faster, and then eventually it could fly. This is silly. This could never happen. And why are they even trying to describe this as the origin of flight? He's in the slide already. A fly. So the fly was already flying. So how are they describing a dinosaur learning to fly as the origin of flight if they're using a fly to describe it and the fly is already flying away? Ha 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 ha! Evolutionists are so stupid. I'm sitting there thinking, you know, someone's stupid, mate. You know, so I don't think it's the evolutionists. It was damn painful. And then, of course, there was the interview with Richard Dawkins where they say, "Can you name one instance of a mutation that has given new information?" And you know, the one where he's being interviewed by the Australians, and he doesn't do interviews with creationists, and it suddenly dawned on him he's being interviewed by creationists, and he sits there. Oh, hang on a minute, and he's trying to decide, am I going to explain it to them at the risk of being quote mined or not? And then he answers, and it's always shown as Richard Dawkins can't.
It's a famous
Richard
clip.
Dawkins can't describe it, you know. And I mean, I've actually got their PowerPoint presentation. I wrote to the guy afterwards, and asked him if I could have a copy, and I'm just flicking through it now. And I'm looking, one of the slides on it, slide number 40, says, "Not one single intermediate fossil has ever been found." And I'm looking at a slide, and it's an amalgamation of different mythical creatures. And we've got a dolphin jumping out of the sea with an iguana's head. Right? We've got a squirrel with a lizard's head. With a toucan's head. You got your classic crocoducks, and then the one I love is a bird flying, right? But it's got a 3-foot tail of a snake. He's at. But you know what? The people in the room were sitting there, and they'd make their little jovial comment like, "Oh, we've never found a bird with a snake for a tail," you know, and they'll all be sitting there going, "Oh, these evolutionists are so silly in the things that they believe." And it was astonishing that not only were these people so uneducated in the idea of the very, very basics of evolution and what transitions are and things, but that they weren't even clever enough to realise that these people were obviously, you know, and they were sitting there going, "Oh yeah, that's funny." Guy next to me who worked at the university that I was at, said, "Can you explain?" Oh shit! What's the name of these creatures now? Something about trilobites. You're saying that an eye cannot just simply evolve, because of course, they put up the straw man that an eye would have to simply instantly pop into existence, fully working, and that never happens. And this guy said, well, can you explain then why this trilobite here, this fossil has got thousands of eyes on it, it's got something like 1,000 eyes, and then later in the fossil record it's got a lot less eyes. If God decided that 1,000-eyed trilobites was a really good idea, why did he take some of the eyes off them later? And all the people in the audience were shouting, "Oh, that's anti-evolution, that is, it's anti-evolution. You can't get more simple from evolution. You have to get more eyes, not less eyes." And but this guy actually said that I think it's probably in the slides as well, that God created all life at the beginning of time, and then over time it's whittled its way down to fewer and fewer species as there have been extinctions. And I said to him, right, okay, are you saying that all animals existed at the beginning of time all at once in their present form? And he said yes. Are you also saying is clearly false, because we should see lots of transitional species because fossils are really easy to make? He said yes. And then I said, then where are the fossils of the humans and the bunny rabbits in the pre-Cambrian era? He said, And what he'd done earlier is they keep interspersing Quran verses, and like the bit with the fly I said earlier, he'll throw up the Quran verses that say, try as they might, they can't even create a fly, and stuff like this. And one of them, when he said that God had created all life in its current form, he put up the verse which says, God only needs to say be and something is. So I said to this guy, so they were all created, where are all the fossils? Oh, no, they weren't all created at once. They created some, and then later they created some more, and then later he created some more. I said, oh, right, so how do you tell the difference between evolution, where you've got simple life forms diverging into different life forms, and you've got snapshots of fossils at different points throughout time, and a God that decides to make simple life forms, and then at different snapshots in time creates different species? How do you tell the difference? And if he did it in different stages, I thought the Quran says Allah only needs to say B, or are you claiming that he said B, 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 B? Right, and all these people in the audience were going, stop insulting my religion. I'm going absolutely crazy. I think it was one of the most bizarre experiences. I mean, this is the 21st century in England. Education is free. People have got no.
So
it's Puppet Turtle first. It's like Kid, then it's each one way. If you want to go after them, Aaron Kid, just right hand.
What I'm going to say, something just commenting on something you said quite a while back, where he said, the odds of a protein developing from an empty ocean are this. I mean, for me, it's like, why does evolution have to be misrepresented so horrifically if it's so untrue? It's like, and particularly abiogenesis, they really have to misrepresent a lot, because that's because it's so poorly understood. You really can't fire back and say, no, actually this happened. So they get away with it. It's a tragic thing.
Okay.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. First of all, lucky you. But really, it was. I've said it before. I said it again. I really like what you do, the Rationalizer, and to be honest, that was one of the best rants I've ever heard in a very long time. Also, yes, and again, one of the things I have observed when it comes to creationists is that creationism is, well, really a religious ideology that, mixes basically science with religion. No matter, that, some concepts are completely ludicrous. In the instance you talked about, transitional fossils, being, hybrids, abominations of hybrids between two completely different species, that's the transitional fossils, and, we don't find them. Well, of course you don't find them, but that's not a transitional fossil is. I think Richard Dawkins explained this one very well in a response to Harun Yawa on that. But and even one example was, I think, of some kind of worm or fish on a fishing lawn or something like that. I don't remember. But one of the odd things...
that was in his Atlas of Creation.
Yeah.
He's got living fossils, and his argument is basically, look, here's 100 million year old fossil of a spider, and here's a spider today. They look the same. Therefore, there is no evolution. And on one of the photos, he'd compared a land plant to a sea animal that just looks a bit like a...
Yeah.
Look, they look the same. And it's like, one's a plant and one's an animal. And he's saying, this hasn't changed at all. But the bit with the fly was, he had a fly, and then the other one...
Ow! Okay, you might be...
And then he compared a fly and then another picture of a fly, and then if you look closely, it's a fishing fly. Someone's got
echo.
Someone's got Blog TV open.
Okay, continue. But
and it compares the two, and the one is actually not even a real fly; it's a fishing fly from some guy's website that makes fishing flies and sells them. And he'd rubbed it all out in Photoshop, but he'd actually left the fishing hook.
But I mean, the sad part is, we're laughing. It's really funny to see, those completely horrendous fails. But the sad part is that, as you pointed out, people actually buy into this stuff because, they either don't know any better or they see it as literally, a ludicrous market to exploit. Something, that you can, make money from, as a living. No, don't care about, being dishonest. As long as you're making money, it's fine.
That's the thing that I can't say. It's dishonesty. That is the thing that always gets me. That is my driving force, is dishonesty. That's the main thing that drives me mad. And that's the only reason I do whatever it is that I do, is because I know not only are the people wrong, but in a lot of cases, they know that they're wrong, and they're letting other people continue to be wrong because they've got money or something. It really, really gets on my nerves so badly.
Yeah, and the worst part of this being is that, people, that are, most prominent creationists, say like Kent Hovind, who is perhaps and Harun Yawa, who I consider to be the Islamic version of Kent Hovind. These people, obviously, they're being dishonest. They're just, interested about money. But, the really sad part is that when you actually criticize them, for the stupidity that they say, for the, whether their claims are unfounded, unscientific, or just genuinely stupid, the problem is that because, again, creationism is a mix between science and religion, when you criticize, the science part, people also feel that you're criticizing the religion part. And so, ultimately, when you're criticizing creationism, you're criticizing my religion, get the hell out of here. And, they basically shut themselves up, to some extent to the evidence. At least that's the way I see it. And I think that's really sad because these people are also know that this is, this happens, and it, base themselves on that to make even more money.
Yeah. Do you know, is it, I can't remember the name of the moths. Someone in the room gave an example of moths evolving, and they were saying that they landed on the trees and they were a certain shade which was similar to the tree. But then as factories set up in the area, and soot came out of the chimneys, it started to darken the trees, and what happened was the moths that had been collected over the years, they naturally started to become darker to match the darker trees, because the ones that remained light got eaten more often by birds. He said, an adaptation, and the guy said, no, that turned out to be fake. The man who caught the moths was painting them.
What?
Oh gosh, the kind of crap and one of the slides they showed was like a monkey, and it's the typical pictures for like ape to human, like, and they say, look, this is what they say happened. They say, but this is impossible, an ape can't turn into a human. And then they pop up a picture of a frog wearing a little prince crown and say, frogs only turn into princes in fairy tales. Ha 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 ha. And I just laughed, because in the Quran there's a verse where Allah turns people into apes and pigs.
I was
like,
saying that.
Said this stuff only happens in fairy tales. It's in the book that you're claiming is true. Oh dear.
No, because Allah made them default.
Yeah.
Mr. Target, Puppy Turtle, it was Uchiyama next. Uchiyama.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out an error the rationalizer made. Is that is the reason there's no rabbits in the Precambrian is because they outrun the trilobites. So.
Oh yeah, of course, and it reminds me of a video that I saw where there was some guy who was a Christian creationist, and he was showing eggs that had been found on the floor, and he said normally these dinosaurs like to lay their eggs in a circle, but look at these eggs. These eggs have been laid out as if they were laid while the dinosaur was running away.
It's Iron Juby. His name is Iron Juby. Sorry.
And the idea that this proves it was running. Not only were the eggs like length to length touching, so it wasn't running very fast, but it also had the time to lay them in twos. So it's like, oh, I'm running, oh, better lay an egg, and then shift my bum to the right a little bit and lay another one. Run a little bit, bum down, squat, drop an egg, shift to the left, drop another one. But the most important thing is like, it's raining. What did the dinosaur think? It's like, oh, it started to rain. I'm going to run away from some rain. But if it was already flooded, so that the dinosaur thought I'd better run for the hills, then what was it like holding its breath just to get it attached to the ground?
It's Puppy Turtle, you're next.
I have a question for Rationalizer. Who do you think is, in your opinion, do you think it's the Muslims or the Christians who, not just creationists or apologists in general, that tend to be more inclined to just tell a blatant lie?
Let me see. I'll have to give it some thought. I think with it's easier for Muslims because the Bible makes the error of trying to be too accurate. It tries to be an instruction book for everything that happened. I read Genesis, and I know you got or something like that. But basically, you open up Genesis, it says, this happened, then on the second day, this happened, and this happened, on the third day, this happened. And it's really precise, and therefore really easy to show that it's wrong. Whereas what the Muslims have is, if the best way I've heard it described is walking into a room with one person already in the room who's on the phone halfway through a conversation and you can only hear one side of the call. And that is the Quran. And basically it was just Muhammad going around and people would say to him, Muhammad, what about this? Right? And it would be something from, say, the Torah or the Bible. And then Gabriel would whisper in his ear, oh, you who say this, but no, it's not true. God did it in this long, and, and stuff like this. And you'll just get, he is the one that separated the two waters. And you get, right, okay, what the hell are you talking about? What two waters? Oh, do you not see? It is he who did this, and it is he who did that. And he's actually making all these references back to the Bible. But they're not in any kind of context. They're all jumbled up based on what was happening on the day and stuff like that. So really, Muslims have it much easier than Christians because it's so out of context all over the place that it's so easy to assign the wrong context to it. And people say, oh, this is a miracle because there are two waters that don't mix in real life. But he's really referring to Genesis, where the water was separated to make the heavens and the seas. But because he didn't make the same effort, he basically just talked about something else. It's so much easier. The thing is, right, my opinion from, generally I don't debate with Christians. And the reason is because it really, really gets on my nerves. I find that Muslims try to make sense. Whereas half the time, I don't even understand the sentence that I'm getting from a Christian. A Muslim will try to say, oh yeah, well, Big Bang this, and this proves the universe is expanding, and blah, blah, blah. And they'll try to make sense. I'll talk to a Christian, and they'll say something like, oh, but what you must understand is, he was the Word, and from the Lord, and his body became the bread, and his word was breathed, and so it became true. And I'm just thinking, I know what all of the individual words mean, but the way that you're putting it into a sentence, it just means absolutely nothing to me. And I find that Christianity is just so much more woo. A lot of the time, I hear a Christian, and they may as well just be saying to me, woo, 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 because I have not a clue what they're talking about. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but that's the best I can give you, I'm afraid.
I mean, so
it's hard. Sorry, I don't let the rationalizer go on. Well, again, there's a bit of decorum. So who wants to speak next? Go on.
I mean, I'll respond to what rationalizer said. I mean, here's the thing. It's not that we're not trying to make sense. It's that I mean, the issue is our theology is really complicated at times. I mean, it's got so many elements, so many. I think the reason is because something supernatural like God, he's so divorced from anything else we know about in the sense that he's so unique. There are how many analogies to describe the relationship humans have with God in the Bible? There's I'll just off the top of my head, they range from servant and master to shepherd and sheep to child, father, child. All of those are. The reason I think we may make less sense to you is just because our theology is more complicated. And also, in my experience, I've never heard a Muslim make sense. So if they're trying to, they're not succeeding.
Well, no, I don't mean be convincing. I just literally just mean make sense, as in.
Rationalizer, right. Basically, the work is that to do next, and then we'll come back to you. If that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm just trying to moderate this until it turns into a shouting match, if that's okay. Okay, so Lotkin, you're next, and then back to rationalise if you want to rebut what you just said. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he'll have to rebut anything of what I say because I'm just making a statement that can be ignored, by the way. But what I have found, but back to the issue of creationism, what I find a bit curious is that we talk about a lot about Christian creationism or Muslim creationism or even Hindu creationism in some instance. Some religions don't really have a creation story, like say Buddhism, if I'm correct. I'm not really sure about that. Maybe I'll need some confirmation. But what I find really interesting is that when you take people like, for instance, aliens, which I've been reminded of after watching a lot of Assassin's Creed, with whole aliens inventing humans as in intelligent design. What I found also curious about those people is that at the same time they're religious because aliens are part of a sect that's if I'm correct moderately active and trying to get attention, of course, but they're not really justifying it as in that's how God said it, because as aliens are atheists. Rather, if I'm correct, they're everything is based again on the guru. But what's really amazing is that they base themselves on intelligent design, but they don't actually buy into therefore God did it. No, they're actually saying, see, there's an intelligent designer that did it, but we know because of probability and some kind of conspiracy stuff that aliens did it. And I thought it's quite interesting and original at the same time, and curious if you compare it to all the other forms of creationism. Sorry, rant moment. There you go, rationalizer.
Rationalizer, do you have anything to add?
Well, it makes sense, though, doesn't it? It's hey, this looks to be this way. I can't prove that it is. It just looks this way. Therefore, I conclude, open brackets, insert unfounded, close brackets. I'm sorry, but that's the way faith works. It literally is believing something despite having no reason to believe it other than you personally think it makes sense.
I would definitely want to. Okay, first.
Do you want to respond to that first time? Sorry.
And
no problem.
That's it. Okay. I would definitely say that's wrong, because there are reasons that I do have to be a Christian. The historical record is so amazing. The Gospels are all super early, with the possible exception of John, and one of the Gospels we have the fifth out copy of, which is unprecedented in antiquity, insanely. The first mention of Jesus' resurrection is 2 or 3 years after it happened, and given that nobody ever corrected them Jesus really didn't do this. No one ever corrected the early church. Between all of that, unless you're willing to make naturalism the foundation stone, the most fundamental assumption of your worldview, which is exactly what I think atheists do, unless you do that, you have to come to the conclusion of Christianity.
Well, have you looked at the hadiths, the stories of Muhammad's life in Islam?
No.
If you read them, what is evident is a lot of the things that are attributed to Muhammad. Now, in the Quran, it's constantly full of people saying, "Bring us a miracle," you a miracle. I'm just a warner. I'm not here to do miracles. I'm just here to give you a message. Sorry, no miracles. But then, if you look at the hadiths, what you'll see is lots of accounts of Muhammad doing lots of miracles to prove that he was a messenger. But the pattern that you'll notice is that people tend to attribute miracles to Muhammad, which were actually attributed to earlier biblical figures. So I don't know which figure it is in the Bible, but there's in the hadith, Muhammad's walking along and there's lots of people and they're all thirsty, so he gets a stick and he strikes a rock and 12 fountains come out of the rock and one of each tribe comes and drinks from it, and then there's I don't remember what all of them are, but there's a few that are similar to biblical claims that these people, are saying, yes, my dad told me he saw this happen. Yeah, and obviously he did. His dad didn't see this happen, but what's happened is folklore has got all mixed into it, and someone told someone that they heard this story that someone did this, and they'll say, oh, that must have been Muhammad. And then when he tells his son, he goes, oh yeah, do you know Muhammad did this? And then the son assumes the dad saw Muhammad do it. And they go, well, it must be true because my dad saw him do it. And, and this is just how it goes. Muhammad did not split the moon in two. He didn't make fountains come out of a rock. He didn't go up and milk a dry cow, a dry goat, and suddenly it started lactating. It didn't happen, right? It's just folklore that got passed around and people mutated it as they went on. It's all written down, and the thing is you might say, oh yeah, this account happened, it could have been written down, say, two years after Jesus was supposed to have died. But the thing is you don't know that mythology wasn't in existence before the time of Jesus, floating around, and that there were different mythologies based on different people that were all supposed to be sons of God and so on. Right? And then after Jesus died, they just mangled it all together.
Okay.
Stop. Right, stop. End up. Right. Rationalize that next week, next time, which is going to be the 10th, which is the next show, is going to be on that. About the Zeitgeist spell. Manuel wasn't there, and we're going to have a very special guest on, who's called Albert, who knows more about this stuff than we do combined, and he's a very smart guy. I could just say something, Rationalizer. As somebody who knows about this stuff, that's a load of rubbish, right? They made it up in the 19th century. None of that stuff has any factual basis whatsoever. It has about as much factual basis as Kent Hovind lectures, okay? Basically, what they did was they basically conflated a lot of stuff. This is something I know a little bit about because Egyptian
they conflated. Who conflated?
People like Gerard Massey, people like Francis Dupuy, people like Francis Dumont, people like that. Basically, people from the 19th century who went looking for this stuff. Now, I'm not saying that the 19th century was good. I'm just saying that this is going to be coming up in 2 weeks. So if you want to phone on there, I want to talk about that because it's creationism. I'm just telling you that you're just wrong because we have the evidence that proves it's wrong because we know where it comes from.
Yeah.
Yes, let's please keep that for the next show.
Yeah. But as I said, we're doing that for the next show. If you want to phone up then, we'll be more than happy to take your call. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I want you on the next show. You're awesome, dude.
Yeah. As I said, we'll have Albert on the next show, and he knows a lot more than us on this subject.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that okay, Russell?
Yeah, that's fine.
It was nothing personal. I'm just saying, as that's going to be the topic of the next show. And actually that's perfect because you're bringing into what the next show is going to be about, which is Zeitgeist, pagan parallels, and and if you want to talk about it, then we'll be more welcome to take your call and talk about it.
That's fine.
Okay, no problem.
Um,
Okay, probably wants to say something, and then we're gonna stop the show. Okay, so RMK, so go.
No, I'm all done with creationism. I think. I mean, I presume none of you guys are. I presume that all of you guys accept evolution.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so the thing is that I think my closing comment would be that my problem with religion is that some God wants to send me a clear message. He didn't really do a very good job of making it clear, because you've got young Earth creationists, you've got old Earth creationists, you've got old Earth intelligent design, you've got old Earth people who accept in evolution, understand what the Adam bit's all about. And basically, considering this book is telling me something, it just makes no sense that so many people would read it and that we can't reach a consensus on what it's actually trying to tell us. And that's my finishing statement.
Okay, no problem, so we'll see you later.
Awesome.
We'll see you on the next show, I assume. Okay?
Yeah, the next show is on,
Pagan Parallels.
yeah, the next show is on, right, guys, the next show, hold on, Rationalizer, mind if I go ahead and let you off?
Yeah, would that be on the 10th?
It will be, yeah.
Yeah.
What-
Okay.
what-
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll mute my mic so I won't talk. But if you don't mind, leave me in, because I can't actually hear the audio on Blog TV. So
Okay.
I'll just
no
mute my
problem.
mic and not talk.
Okay, that's no problem, Rationalizer.
I'll see you later.
See ya.
Okay, RMK, then it's Flatkin, okay?
Okay. I just wanted to say something about his implication, like a little towards the beginning of his talk, where he said, he sort of implied that faith was belief without evidence or in spite of evidence or something. I just want to say that is not the biblical definition of faith. That might be what Webster's dictionary says, but we're talking about Christianity, or at least when we're talking about Christianity, Webster, you're supposed to go back to the Bible to determine what Christianity is. So if we look at the Bible, the Greek word behind faith in the New Testament is pistis, and pistis is actually a technical rhetorical term that translates to for. So it is absolutely not belief based on no evidence or whatever you implied.
Could you,
Basically,
could you repeat that, because I couldn't hear you very much, and well, people who are going to get the recording aren't going to hear you very much.
What do you mean
about faith being a rhetorical, technical thing? It basically cut around that moment.
You just can't hear me, so you just want me to talk louder?
No, it literally cut at that moment, so if you could repeat that statement.
Okay. Now, the Greek word behind faith is pistis, and pistis is actually a technical rhetorical term translated to forensic proof. So it's actually the exact opposite of belief based on no evidence, and there's a usage of pistis that really demonstrates this. It's Acts chapter 17, verse 31. Because he hath appointed a day in the which he will judge the world in righteousness by that man whom he hath ordained, whereof he hath given assurance, pistis, unto all men, in that he has raised him from the dead. So, I don't know what the definition of faith for other religions is, but in Christianity, it is absolutely not belief based on no evidence. That's all.
Okay, I guess it's my turn then. Yeah, I'd like to react to the what? Sorry. I'd like to react to the closing statements of Rationalizer. actually, when he's talking about, creationism, intelligent design, based on, the same passages, but with, different interpretations. Well, again, when you use, good, mostly the exegetic method, if I'm correct, but, the original understanding of the passage is, I'd say often the best, and again, through history, and this is a bit of an inconsistency that creationists, by the way, don't talk about, especially young Earth creationists, but at the time, one has to understand that Christians of the early church had to do with, very little of what science had. So, they, based on, the genealogy of Christ, they had to say, the earth is at least 7,000 years old. Yes, at the time they said it was 6,000 years old, but at their own time. This led also to the rise of what we call the Byzantine calendar, which actually, counts the years by, the time of creation. So, like, today would be like, in the year 7,000 and something. It was used like, I think, 1,000 years in the Greek Orthodox Church and like 400 years in the Russian Orthodox Church during, the Middle Ages and stuff like that. So, of course, Christians don't talk about, but I digress. They went to 6,000 years old when, some random small Anglican bishop decided, looked through the genealogy of Christ and said, aha, the earth is 6,000 years old. Again, no offense meant to any Anglican who hears this. But, sorry, I'm digressing. But the point is that, again, Genesis doesn't imply anything on, something that is truly scientific from, the creation narrative. It's not, it's used allegorically, abstractly, because, it's not supposed to be taken as a science book. People who really, and that's the real problem with creationists, who really say that the Bible can be used as a science textbook, forget that, first of all, Scripture is, has a divine inspiration that is infallible. And one of the major components of something being scientific is falsifiability. How can something be infallible and falsifiable at the same time? It's not a matter of, all these people come to, different conclusions from the same passage. Is that people just don't understand how this passage is supposed to be taken. That's how I see it. Anyone wants to react?
If I may?
Yeah.
For me, yeah. As a Protestant, as somebody who subscribes to the model of sola scriptura, I'd say this problem is worse for us, and that's why you only can have Protestant creationists, in fact, at least in my experience. The thing that we do, we read through Scripture and try to interpret it for ourselves. That's a good thing in the sense that it keeps us from being binded to a random thing that the Pope or somebody a high bishop or a high bishop says that's wrong. On the other hand, what that leads to, the downside to that is that it leads to this people who are just random people who are ignorant interpret in English translation poorly for themselves based on their preconceived notions. As a result, the Greek for as a result, what looks like the literal interpretation of Genesis in English, you figure out in the original Greek, it's a little bit fuzzier. They're saying that the audio is so bad they can't hear a thing.
We can hear you. At least I can.
On Blog TV, I mean.
Oh. That's kind of sad.
There's nothing
How
I
come?
can do about the. There's nothing I can do about the audio. I don't stream a Skype call straight into Blog TV. If I knew how they did it at Magic Sandwich Show, that's what I would do.
Maybe we should ask them one day.
I mean,
Actually, if you want, I'll Google it after the show and send you some program.
Okay. Anyway, I know I said I was next, but I'm just making a remark on what the Poppy's Turtle began to say, on young Earth creationists being exclusively Protestant. Actually, no. Yes, most of, creationists are, Protestants. I think that's relatively certain. But, if you look at, the statistics in America, I think that a bit less than 40% of Catholics actually support young Earth creationism. For Orthodox, I think it's a bit more, just slightly more. I'm not sure. I have to check them again. But I am sure that actually Protestants, are actually sending, young Earth creationist books, for instance, like in Russia, where I consider the Orthodox Church there, and the Catholic Church there also, and other churches there, because it's fairly recent that they have, come to some sense of normality, quote unquote. They're kind of fragile, and, this is kind of the best opportunity for creationists to, get books there. The situation there is kind of bad for everyone. Yeah.
I mean,
sorry.
Okay, that's actually surprising to me that there would be Catholic young Earth creationists, because, in my experience, most young Earth creation, the Catholic Church, is that not only that it's, not the one true church, but that they essentially the same views as Kent Hovind, Ida I-35, etc., or Venom Thing X, that it is actually so distant and apostate that most Catholics will go straight to hell.
Okay. So we're going to do final thoughts now. So, Uchimama, do you want to do your final thoughts? Does Uchimama, who wants to go first with the final thoughts? Anyone?
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you go first. Yeah. Uchimama.
I think that I think this show has gone a lot better than the last one now that we have a moderator, and I think we can agree that creationism is silly.
Yes.
Okay, who wants to go next? Aaron K. 1994.
No.
Okay.
I might go next.
Okay, you go, Lockin.
Okay, I'll say that I think this show was awesome. Most of all because we had a moderator. We had a good time, had some awesome laughs, and there's a general agreement. And now the downside is it's kind of sad that we didn't have a young Earth creationist pop up here and talk about it. But we managed without it, and we still had some fun with it. So yeah, yay!
I mean,
okay, Pope and Turtle, do you have a final comment?
Yeah, first off, if Oliver Scott counts, because our first caller was a Poe, and I let him in knowing that, just figured whatever. I mean, here's the thing with creationism. It's just, I personally believe at the moment creationism is the greatest threat to salvation, because I think it's so embarrassing to Christians to have Kent Hovind running around that I actually think, I have a screen cap which I will play on the Blog TV right now of an individual saying that Venom Thing X is the one who is actually one of the main reasons that they are no longer Christian, that he effectively that Venom Thing X deconverted him. That's why I think why why I make it a point to oppose creationism, because, it needs to, that this is a minority. This is a minority that everyone laughs at it. That's the public image. We need to, if we're going to save Christianity from creationism, I think we need to kill creationism or just distance ourselves from it as much as we can.
Each one will have one thing to say, and then I'll let Aaron K get his final thoughts in.
Okay, this is just sorry, this is a little bit of a distraction, but I just got a message saying that Cartesian Theist has a new channel, so.
Oh, really? What's the link?
It's just the Cartesian Theist with, the.
Okay.
Okay, I suppose I'll wrap up. Thank you very much, everybody who's in the Blog TV and everybody who phoned in. The show will be Zeitgeist, / the God Who Wasn't There, / Paragon Parallels, and we'll be having our very first guest speaker, who's going to be Labyrinth 312. Can somebody post his channel in the Blog TV comments just so that people have it?
Labarum 312.
Well, yeah. Just put it in the comments. Yes. So basically, it'll be on Pagan Parallels. If you know somebody who's into it or like the rationalizer, you think it's maybe true, please phone up. Albert's probably one of the smartest people on the New Testament I probably have heard of. He makes us look like idiots. He'll be on next time. I hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much.
Yay.
All right, I'm going to end the call, play the typical outro music, and then I'm going to immediately start it back up so Rash can tell us how they broadcast the Skype chat, okay?
I'm turning the recording off now.